Actually, I said clearly, this is not my house anymore. I sold it 2 weeks ago to Mr. Jackson. He is the legal owner now. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Cassandra's sobs entirely ceased. My father's face went from relief to confusion to dawning horror in the span of seconds. What are you talking about? My mother finally managed, rising from the porch steps. You cannot have sold the house. We were going to sell it for Cassandra's apartment. The officer looked between us with growing understanding. Ma'am, he addressed my mother, are you saying you entered this property without the owner's permission? No, my father interjected quickly. This is a family misunderstanding. Amanda, tell them this is all a mistake. I looked at Gabriel, who gave me a small nod of support. There is no mistake, I said firmly. I sold the house to Mr. Jackson 2 weeks ago. The sale has been recorded with the county. My parents and sister no longer have any right to access this property. That is impossible, my mother exclaimed. He cannot have sold it without telling us. We had plans. Their plans, I corrected, not mine. He decided what would happen to my property without consulting me. He scheduled viewings without my permission. You kept a key without my knowledge. And today you broke into a house that no longer belongs to me. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You had no right. I had every right, I countered. The house was mine legally, morally, in every way that matters. The officer, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama unfolding before him, cleared his throat. Based on what I am hearing, it sounds like these folks, he gestured to my parents, entered the property illegally, albeit under a misunderstanding. Mr. Jackson, do you want to press charges for trespassing? Gabriel shook his head. No, that will not be necessary as long as they leave now and understand they cannot return without an invitation. My father looked like he might argue further, but my mother tugged at his arm. Let us go, Robert. Not here. Not like this. As they turned toward their car, Cassandra finally emerged. Her face streaked with tears and twisted with fury. How could you do this to me? She screamed, storming toward me. To my baby? You knew we needed this house. You needed a place to live, I replied, keeping my voice level. Not specifically this house. Not my house. You are so selfish. You have always been jealous of me, and now you are taking it out on my innocent child. My father had to physically guide her back to the car as she continued to shout accusations. Through the open window, I could hear her sobbing that I had ruined everything and never cared about family. As they drove away, the officer tipped his hat. I will file a report about the incident, but since there is no desire to press charges, this should be the end of it. I would recommend changing the locks if you have not already, sir. Already done, Gabriel assured him. Thank you for your help. When the police car had gone, Gabriel and I stood awkwardly in the driveway. I'm sorry about that, I said finally. I should have warned you something like this might happen. He shook his head. Family complications are rarely neat or predictable. Would you like to come in for a cup of coffee? It is still your porch too, as far as I am concerned. I looked at the house, the familiar lines of it now belonging to someone else. Thank you, but I should probably deal with the fallout from this. Rain check? Anytime, he said kindly. As I drove back to the city, my phone began buzzing incessantly with texts and calls from my parents and sister. I turned it off, needing space to process what had just happened. The confrontation had been every bit as awful as I had feared. Yet underneath the stress and guilt was a surprising sense of relief. The truth was out. For better or worse, I had stood my ground. The weeks following what my mother dramatically termed the betrayal were some of the most difficult of my adult life. My family alternated between icy silence and explosive outbursts with no middle ground for actual conversation. My father sent a formally-looking letter demanding I turn over the proceeds from the sale, claiming they were rightfully family funds intended for Cassandra's apartment. My mother left tearful voicemails about how I had broken her heart and destroyed the family. My sister blocked me on all social media and told mutual friends I had abandoned her in her time of need. Extended family members soon got involved, having heard wildly varying versions of the story. My Aunt Carol called to ask if it was true I had sold the family homestead out from under everyone. My cousin Patrick texted to say he thought I had done the right thing standing up for myself, but he was in the minority. The narrative being spread was that I, the selfish career woman, had callously disregarded the needs of my pregnant sister out of spite and greed. Few seemed interested in hearing my side, that the house had been legally mine alone, that I had maintained it for years with no help from anyone, that my family had attempted to appropriate it without my consent. There were moments I questioned my decision, wondering if I should have found some compromise. Perhaps I could have loaned Cassandra money for a down payment while keeping the house. Maybe I could have sold it and split the proceeds more equitably. The guilt would creep in during quiet moments, making me wonder if I had overreacted. And I would remember the entitlement in their voices as they discussed selling my property as if I had no say in the matter. I would recall my sister's casual assumption that the bedroom where I kept my most precious possessions would become her baby's nursery. I would think of my grandmother's letter entrusting the house to me specifically because she knew I would honor its history and significance. About a month after the confrontation, I received an unexpected message from Tyler, Cassandra's boyfriend and the father of her baby. Can we meet for coffee? Just you and me. There are some things you should know. Curious and a bit wary, I agreed to meet him at a cafe halfway between my office and his workplace. When he arrived, he looked tired and stressed, the impending responsibility of fatherhood clearly weighing on him. Thanks for coming, he said as he slid into the booth across from me. Cassandra would kill me if she knew I was talking to you. I appreciate you reaching out, I replied. How is she doing, and the baby? They are both fine health-wise, but he hesitated, stirring his coffee absently. There are things about our situation that your family has not been honest about. Over the next hour, Tyler shared revelations that shifted my understanding of the entire scenario. Contrary to the impression my parents had given, he and Cassandra were not in dire financial straits. Tyler had a stable job in IT with good benefits. They could afford their apartment comfortably, and while it was small, it was in a good neighborhood with excellent schools nearby. I never wanted your house, he admitted. I was shocked when Cassandra told me that was the plan. I kept saying we could save for our own place, but she insisted her parents had promised they would take care of everything. Moreover, Tyler revealed that he had been deeply uncomfortable with how I was being treated throughout the situation. The way they talked about you when you were not around, like you owed them this massive favor and were being difficult for not immediately agreeing, it did not sit right with me. Most surprisingly, Tyler confessed that he had been saving for a down payment on a modest condo for over a year. I wanted it to be a surprise for when the baby came, but now I do not know if that is what Cassandra even wants. She keeps talking about the house she lost, as if it was already hers. His conversation prompted me to do some investigating of my own. Using my connections in real estate, I discovered my parents had refinanced their own home 6 months earlier, taking out considerable equity. They certainly had the means to help Cassandra with housing if they chose to without involving my property at all. The pieces were falling into place. This had never been about Cassandra desperately needing housing. It had been about my parents wanting to appear generous and supportive without spending their own money. They had seen my inheritance as an easy solution, a family resource to be redistributed as they saw fit rather than my personal property. When I brought this information to my friend Stephanie, she was unsurprised. They have always treated you like the responsible one who should sacrifice for everyone else, she pointed out. They probably never imagined you would stand up to them like this. A rift in my family deepened as weeks turned into months. Sunday dinners were a thing of the past. Holiday plans remained uncertain. My mother had begun telling family friends that I was going through something and they should pray for me to come back to my senses. My father took a more direct approach, sending increasingly stern emails about my obligations and duty to family. When I did not respond as he wished, he attempted to involve mutual acquaintances as mediators, most of whom were wise enough to stay out of the conflict. Cassandra, now showing visibly in her pregnancy, weaponized her condition at every opportunity. Through mutual friends, I heard she was telling anyone who would listen that I was so jealous of her having a baby that I had sabotaged her chance at a proper family home. The most painful aspect was how little interest any of them showed in understanding my perspective. Not once did my parents acknowledge that perhaps they should have consulted me before making plans for my property. Not once did my sister express appreciation for the years I had spent maintaining the house they had all suddenly decided should be hers. It was as if my feelings, my autonomy, and my legal rights were simply inconvenient obstacles to their plans rather than valid considerations deserving of respect. Yet, as difficult as this period was, it was also strangely clarifying. For the first time I was seeing my family dynamic with absolute clarity, unfiltered by the desire to keep peace at any cost. I was learning to set boundaries even when they brought conflict. I was discovering that I could withstand disapproval without crumbling. In quiet moments I sometimes thought of my grandmother and wondered what she would make of all this. The more I reflected, the more I became convinced that her decision to leave the house specifically to me rather than to the family generally had been deliberate. Perhaps she had recognized tendencies in my parents that I had been too close to see clearly. Never let anyone take advantage of your kind heart, she had told me. Not even family, especially family. Now I understood exactly what she had meant. 6 months passed with minimal contact between me and my immediate family. I threw myself into work, set new sales records at my firm, and slowly adjusted to weekends without my countryside retreat. I maintained occasional text communication with Tyler, who provided brief updates about Cassandra's pregnancy and their preparations for the baby. During this time, I used a portion of the money from the house sale to make some sound investments, working with a financial advisor to create a diverse portfolio. I also found a small but charming condo closer to the city with a balcony large enough for container gardening, a substitute for the orchard I had loved, but better than nothing. Occasionally I would receive a text from Gabriel with a photo of the country house, a new flower blooming in the garden or fresh snow on the roof. True to his word, he had preserved the character of the place while making it his own. These messages were bittersweet, but ultimately comforting knowing my grandmother's beloved home was in caring hands. My extended family began to reach out individually as the months went by. My Aunt Deborah, my mother's sister, invited me to lunch and actually listened to my version of events without judgment. My cousin Elizabeth included me in her wedding plans despite my mother's apparent objection. Slowly, I was rebuilding connections on mutual respect rather than obligation. Then came the news that Cassandra had given birth to a healthy baby girl, Lily. The announcement came not from my sister or parents, but from Tyler, who sent a simple text with a photo of their daughter. Thought you would want to know you are an aunt. The tiny face in that image stirred something in me. A reminder that despite everything, this innocent child was my blood relation, my niece. Whatever conflicts existed between the adults and the family, they were not our fault. After careful consideration, I made a decision that felt right. I set up a college fund for Lily using a portion of the proceeds from the house sale. I arranged it through a trust so that the money could only be used for educational expenses, not accessed by my sister or parents for other purposes. I sent Tyler the documentation and a small gift for the baby, a soft blanket similar to one my grandmother had made for me. His reply was immediate and grateful. This means a lot. Cassandra may not say it now, but someday she will appreciate what you have done. Whether that was true remained to be seen, but I had not done it for appreciation. I had done it because it aligned with my values and honored the legacy of generosity my grandmother had shown me. 2 weeks later, I received an unexpected call from my mother. Her voice sounded older, more subdued than I remembered. Tyler told us what you did for Lily, she said after an awkward greeting. That was thoughtful of you. She is my niece, I replied simply. I want what is best for her. A long pause followed. Your father and I have been doing some thinking, she finally continued. Perhaps I did not handle things as well as I could have with the house situation. It was not quite an apology, but for my mother it was unprecedented. I remained silent, waiting to hear more. We miss you at Sunday dinner, she added. Maybe you could come this weekend, meet Lily. The invitation hung between us, weighted with unspoken complications. I would like to meet her, I said carefully. But Mom, I need to know that you understand why I did what I did. I cannot just pretend nothing happened. Another long pause. I cannot speak for your father or sister, she said finally. But I have come to see that we should have respected that the house was yours. We should have asked, not assumed. It was a small acknowledgement, but significant coming from a woman who had never admitted fault in my memory. Thank you for saying that, I replied, my voice softening. It means a lot. That Sunday dinner was tense but civil. My father was stiffly polite, clearly uncomfortable, but making an effort. Cassandra was cold at first, but softened somewhat when she saw how naturally I took to holding Lily. The baby was beautiful with Cassandra's blue eyes and Tyler's dark hair, a new life untainted by adult conflicts. The college fund was very generous, my father said as we ate dessert, the first direct reference to the situation all evening. Cassandra tells me it will cover for years at a good school. I wanted to do something meaningful for Lily, I explained. Something that would make a difference in her future. We have been thinking, my mother interjected carefully, that perhaps we focus too much on the house itself rather than the bigger picture of family support. Your father and I have decided to help Tyler and Cassandra with a down payment on a condo they found. One they can afford the monthly payments on themselves. This was new information, and judging by Cassandra's expression a recent development. That sounds like a good solution, I replied. It is what we should have done from the beginning, my father admitted gruffly, the closest he would likely come to acknowledging his error. As the evening progressed, I found myself sharing a quiet moment with Cassandra on the porch while she rocked Lily to sleep. I was really angry at you, she said softly, not looking at me. I felt like you chose a house over me and my baby. That was never the choice, I replied. I felt like my autonomy, my right to make decisions about my own property was being completely disregarded. Like what I wanted did not matter. She was silent for a moment. I guess I never thought about it from your perspective. Mom and Dad always made it sound like the house was kind of a family asset. And since I needed it more than you thought you was fine you. But that was never theirs to decide, I pointed out gently. Just like I would never presume to make decisions about your life or property without consulting you. She nodded slowly, looking down at her sleeping daughter. Motherhood is making me think differently about a lot of things, about boundaries and respect. I want Lily to grow up knowing her opinions matter, that no one has the right to make decisions for her without her consent. That sounds like excellent parenting, I said, genuinely impressed by this glimpse of maturity from my sister. I cannot promise Mom and Dad will ever fully understand what they did wrong, she continued. They are pretty set in their ways. But I think I do now, and I'm sorry, Amanda. Not for wanting a good home for my baby, but for assuming I was entitled to yours. Her apology, far more direct than my mother's, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. In the months that followed, our family began a slow, sometimes awkward healing process. Sunday dinners resumed, though now they often took place at my new condo or at Tyler and Cassandra's apartment. My parents never fully acknowledged the extent of their overstepping, but they made efforts to show respect for my boundaries in other ways. I maintained my friendship with Gabriel, occasionally accepting his invitation to visit the country house. It was different now seeing it as a guest rather than an owner. But there was healing in that too. A reminder that letting go did not have to mean losing everything. As Lily grew from newborn to infant to curious crawler, she became a bridge between previously fractured relationships. It was impossible to hold grudges while watching her discover the world with wide-eyed wonder. Through her, I found a new connection to my sister, a shared investment in the future that transcended past conflicts. My grandmother had been right all along. Family was important, vital even, but healthy family relationships required respect, boundaries, and the courage to stand firm when those boundaries were crossed. The house she had left me had ultimately taught me that lesson in unexpected ways. In the end, I did not regret selling the country house. What I had gained, painful though the process had been, was something more valuable. The knowledge that I could stand up for myself even against those I loved most and emerge stronger on the other side.